Hey, so this is a very different style of video. Wow. Hey, this is a very different video to the style of normal. There's a speed paint going on while I ramble about terraforming Mars and my thoughts. Spoilers, I think it's a bad idea. So, in summary, people say we should colonize Mars and terraform it to be viable for a long-term human colony. And let's start with the first issue I have with this. And that's, so Mars, the fourth planet in our solar system, don't know why I decided that was relevant information, has a gravity of 3.71, which is just over 3 times smaller than Earth's 9.81. This could pose an issue to people if they chose to go back to Earth, for starters, due to the lowered gravity and the fact we already know that that does make an issue in space. Due to the lowered gravity causing at least muscle atrophy, and it potentially gives unclear issues with bones, but we have little data on the long-term exposure to low gravity to that extreme, due to, lack of easy access and ethics. Real problem with a lot of things I think about. The lack of information due to ethics. Anyway, there's no solution to this, because what are you going to do? Make the planet spin faster? I don't think there's a way of doing that actually could work. So yeah, strike one, as I've put it. And on to the more immediate issue. Well, one of the more immediate issues with living on Mars. Having issues with the atmosphere and breathing. You can't breathe on Mars. There's not, enough oxygen or air. Well, there's not really enough of either of them. So you're thinking, we'll drop a bunch of oxygen and other relevant gases onto Mars. Problem solved, right? No. Firstly, Mars is big. This is unlikely to be easy. Even if you can get enough of the relevant gases, it's not going to stay there. It's just flat out not going to stay on the planet. One, lowered gravity, and two, the atmosphere. There isn't one. And so you ask, how to make it stay on the planet? Well, give Mars an atmosphere, and there is only one way I'm aware of that could even potentially work, and it's untested, due to the fact we don't want to mess with Earth's atmosphere. And the fact this method can be summarised as nuke the surface of Mars repeatedly. And while I think we do have enough nukes for the theory, good luck getting the US to give up any of their nukes. So you're gonna have to make more nukes, which is dubious. So in summary of this point, if we repeatedly nuke Mars, it might create an atmosphere. Sounds good, right? At least Mars will have an atmosphere. Yeah, about that. It's temporary. As it is believed the atmosphere wouldn't last for several reasons, and one of those being the fact that Mars doesn't have a consistent magnetic field. It does have areas of magnetic field, but there isn't a consistent one over the planet. So there's also no method, even theoretical, to the level of repeatedly nuke the planet, that I am aware of that could do anything about this issue. So you're left with a planet that needs to be consistently nuked on a semi-regular basis to maintain an atmosphere. And I'm calling that a second strike against this plan. So you may be thinking, right, so your next problem is lack of water, right? No, Mars has water. I mean, it's underground and it's frozen, and if you brought it up to the atmosphere, the low atmospheric pressure would boil it instantly. But if you consider you've got the atmosphere working, and you're calling nuking the planet consistently an acceptable trade-off, and I will shut up about the nukes, I swear. But unfortunately it becomes, radiation, bit of a problem. Anyway, not the point. I'll shut up about them. So back to the atmosphere. You could possibly get the pressure to a level humans could live in, even if you most likely need to have an adjustment thing that goes when you're getting onto Mars, like you do with deep sea diving and stuff. The proper deep sea one when you go up and down. To avoid the bends. That being said, I'm not really sure how you do it. Maybe add a load of gas. I've written grass. Add a load of gas into the atmosphere. This could maybe work. But I'll refrain from giving another strike solely for that. I'll give you a half strike. I give it half strikes and 2.5 strikes. And that being said, Mars is also very cold. And these can in fact be solved by inducing global warming on Mars. It would take a long time and could potentially have interesting consequences that we really cannot foresee, but it would probably work, and we know how to cause global warming. The main problem with this is entirely the fact it would take a long time to get from minus 80 degrees Celsius, minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit, or minus 62 degrees Celsius, or if you're feeling scientific, 111 degrees Kelvin, up to the more livable temperature, like, I don't know, 69 degrees Fahrenheit. So there's a point. He gets a point. That's 1 point and 2.5 strikes. And onto a tangent that isn't the first problem you might think of, and is not actually much of an issue, but I want to talk about space radiation, which you can't stop from existing. And space radiation is made up of high-energy protons and heavy ions moving at very high speeds, being radiation and all. And it's caused in, several different ways, such as particles shot into space during solar flares and cosmic rays, which is kind of interesting, but anyway. The thing is, though, space radiation both can be stopped by aluminium and heavy dense materials, such as concrete, standard building materials. And it's also experienced on Earth. It's about the same amount you'd experience on Mars, so I brought this up because I wanted to talk about space radiation, and I can, because I'm making this. My next issue with Mars revolves around food and the production of general necessities. I'm going to refer to food because I am, and I do what I want. So, due to how far away Mars is, and bear in mind all of these points somewhat appeal to the same issue with general production, but I'm using food because it's a bit easier to explain and I have a bit more knowledge of, farming stuff. So due to how far away Mars is, relying on Earth for food is impractical. And to elaborate, 18 months of journey time. That's the elaboration. Anyway, so we need to be able to produce Mars on we need to produce Mars on food's surface. We need to produce food on Mars's surface. First problem, we repeatedly nuke the planet, so we have large areas that can't be used, for radiation. And I have a suspicion that I can't really prove because I can't find anything on Mars, air currents or wind currents, because it's not really the most useful piece of information. It also doesn't really have them because it doesn't have an atmosphere, so if it gets an atmosphere it might, the entire planet might end up irradiated. So that's the other problem with the nukes. Sorry, I said I'd stop about the nukes. Anyway, the second problem is the surface of Mars is iron, magnesium, aluminium, calcium, and potassium. I mean, sure, some of those things are good for growing plants, some of those things are not, but and I'm starting with plants because that's just how I formulated the sentence. So good luck growing plants. I mean, there's also not really anything soil, and Mars's surface is very hard, and obviously you've got water you can add into it. You kind of need, dirt. Okay, you say. Bring soil and fertilizer with you. Now, here's the problem with crops. Well, bringing seeds is relatively easy and all of that other stuff. You plant it's the same problem we have on Earth, but on Earth we don't really have to worry about, transporting something through space. Anyway, I'm talking about this in a really weird order. So, you plant the crops, and you've got the fertilizer, but, you've only brought so much fertilizer, because you physically can't bring an infinite quantity of fertilizer. And the thing about plants is, you grow them, and they use up some of the nutrients in the soil. And, okay, you say, crop rotations. Here's the problem with crop rotations. Yeah, they are effective, and they do help with the soil, but, they only help so much. And there's a reason that one of the crop rotations is farm animals. So, yeah. Okay, you say. So, farm animals. Oh, what about that, now I remember the name of the film, Mars or something. Matt Damon Poop Potatoes film. I'm sure everyone knows. Well, actually, who knows? So, I mean, that could work, right? Use human waste to grow the potatoes. I mean, yeah, it does actually work. But here's the thing about that. You can't use the human waste unless it's your own, unless you want to risk getting sick. So, we've now in theory, you could purify the waste so it works for everyone, but still contains the right amount of nutrients. I mean, that's a bit hard. And you might be able to do it, but I'm not quite sure how effective that would be. For obvious reasons of by removing some of the bacteria, you run the risk of it. So, what do we normally use? Well, we actually normally use a mixture of fixed human feces and animal feces, partly by, letting them graze over the land. because one, they eat stuff that a lot of animals grow. Animals are done in fields where you physically can't grow anything. Seriously, a lot. If you've got a patch of land you can't grow anything on, which is quite common, you would be surprised at how little of the planet's actually fertile land for what we use it for agriculturally, as opposed to standard growing stuff that normally grows there. Wow, that was a weird sentence. But anyway, my issues with the concept of the entire planet going vegan aside. So, to get animal waste, you need animals. And so you say you gotta get animals onto Mars. So, I'd recommend chickens, by virtue of them being smaller, incredibly easy to get on the land. Also, they do have a relatively shorter life cycle in comparison, if I'm remembering. Actually, it's not that much shorter, but it's also, they're birds. They're dumb enough that they probably wouldn't be too traumatized by the trip. But either way, you need to be able to transport said chickens. Enough chickens to get an actual stable population that isn't going to run the risk of interbreeding. Bit of an issue there. And enough food for an 18-month space travel. And, how do I put this? Animals are bad enough travelling with internal country travelling. And what I'm saying here is, it would be a train wreck worthy of a space opera, whether it works or not, and I would love to see that, but I also think it might be considered animal abuse. Humans can sign up for this. Animals really can't. Then again, the reason I said chickens is they're dumb enough that I actually think it might not be. They might actually not have an issue with it, they'd just be confused. Seriously, they are so stupid. I love them. Anyway, my final issue revolves around humans and, our requirements for sanity and, ethics, again. So, in summary, the isolation from the majority of the population, they've established this happens with astronauts at times, and there's also the issue of the confined space in comparison to Earth. Well, confined and exposed space can also be very different, and it's not clear whether or not we'd be able to make it, whether or not you could grow enough outdoor space required to trick the human brain into thinking it's outdoors, or whether or not being on the planet itself would just genuinely, it's possible that no matter what you do, you get it all working, and for a while it just doesn't work because the human brain doesn't acknowledge it as an outdoors, and the human brain needs an outdoor space. It needs that kind of thing, surprisingly enough, as I'm sure we've all probably figured out at this point. I say, contradicting myself. But anyway, also, there'll be a large section of this planet you won't be able to use for, nuke reasons, which, may lead to, depending on the size of the population, that obviously, if you're intending to do a long-term colony, you have to bring at least enough people to avoid a genetic bottleneck, and, the more to be non-related enough to, again, avoid a genetic bottleneck. Which is going to be quite hard, and it does mean most of these people will have just about no one they know near them. So, that is going to be an entertaining problem. Also, you're going to have all of them, be able to run everything by themselves, or with the aid of AI, but the thing about dumb AI as we currently have is it's best for administration jobs. Honestly, we should replace CEOs with it. Genuinely, that is its best applicable use. Not the point. I'm going on a tangent again, but the thing is, it's very probable that people would be the people who do this would have to obviously volunteer and be willing to go through this, but it's very possible that they would get there and not be able to cope no matter how much training you get. The amount of training astronauts go through, and they don't go up in space for more than a year. And we're talking about a year's journey to start with. Just to get there. So it's a year's journey back, and you'd have to stay there enough time for it to be worth it. And honestly, it's just chilling to think about. It's just also, my final point is entirely, we've messed up one planet. Why would we deserve to mess around with another planet to fix it, why shouldn't we just try and fix this planet? Like, I get the point of setting up a Antarctica-like colony, even if I think it's just not gonna work. Robots on Mars are the smartest solution right now, and I vote we just replace Discovery. But yeah, I'm like kind of tired of writing this now, and I'm gonna end it here. Feel free to like and subscribe. Bye and all that. Oh.